Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have the prayer and the pledge by Councilman David Broussard.
Our Father, art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Dan Doyle.
Here.
Councilmember Natalie Lopez.
Present.
Councilmember Marlon Lewis.
Here.
Councilmember David Broussard.
Here.
Councilmember Deidre Ledbetter.
Here.
Councilmember Sherry Guidry.
Present.
Councilmember Dustin Swear.
Here. Item 1 is public comment. I don't think we have any comment cards. I'll take this time to ask you to put your phones on vibrate, and we will move on to item 2. Madam Clerk.
Acceptance of the minutes of June 16th, 2020, as published on June 24th, 2020.
Do you have a motion? Motion by Councilman Lewis. Do I have a second? Councilman Ledbetter. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, please vote your machines. Thank y'all. Item 3.
Director or representatives from New Iberia Housing Authority to address the council on the status of HUD compliance issues.
Do we have anybody here? I'm going to go ahead and call on Jeff Simon and let Jeff kind of bring us up to date and kind of why we're having this public discussion today. Jeff?
We had a discussion like this about June last year, so it was a similar thing. Let me just explain kind of the background of this organization so people will know why we're doing this. The Housing Authority is created under state law. It's a separate public body. It's not part of city government. It's not governed by the mayor and board of trustees, mayor and council, and the city doesn't fund it. So it's not a city agency, but we do have some connection to it. One of the connections is that the members of the Board of Commissioners are appointed by the mayor and council. The commissioners can be removed by the mayor and council. The mayor removes, the appeal is to the council. So it's possible for the mayor and council to change the leadership, but we have no control over the budget of the operations. The biggest reason that we care about what happens with the authority is the Housing Authority owns properties that it leases to city residents. So it houses our people. And it houses a lot of them, several hundred of them. So we care very much about what happens with the Housing Authority and how it does its operations. The Housing Authority really depends for funding and regulation on the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is a federal agency, which we call HUD. And HUD oversees what the Housing Authority does. It receives the audits, it regulates the funds, how things get spent. It's got rules and regulations about how the Housing Authority operates. HUD has been in discussions that go back to Hilda Curry's administration about how things are done at the Housing Authority, and HUD was not happy. HUD has tried to get the city government, the mayor and council, to sign on to agreements where we get involved in the Housing Authority operations, and we have not done that. So we have not agreed to clean everything up, but we have been involved in discussions. There have been conference calls, there have been meetings, there's been correspondence. The role of the city has been to try to bring these two parties together to try to solve these problems, to try to unlock some of that money at HUD that could be used by the Housing Authority to make improvements in the property. So right now they pointed out that there are some serious maintenance issues and a lot of expensive repairs that need to be done. About half of the units are not occupied at this time, so it's not really a very efficient use of all that property. And there's some management issues that they have with the board, and there hasn't been an audit since 2017, I think it is. So there's some serious concerns with HUD. HUD would probably like the Housing Authority to move to a voucher system, a complete voucher system where there is no Housing Authority property and there is no Housing Authority running housing at these different facilities. Right now, the city has a Section 8 program that Brian Gautreaux handles, does a wonderful job, but we really don't think that we can take on all of that as part of a Section 8 program. So we have tried to get involved as the city and city council, as a meeting a year ago, and in many, many discussions that we've had in conference calls with these very thorough, tough, smart people. We've tried to get involved in this to try to save the Housing Authority as it is now. But we can only go so far. You know, we can try to promote discussions, we can try to point out what needs to be done, we can try to bring the parties together, but it really is up to the board to change if the Housing Authority is going to survive. And one of the reasons that we wanted to bring this up is to bring this before the council, because the council cares about what happens to its people. And you know, we thought that if we brought it before the council, we might be able to make some progress. I don't know. And Ms. Deal is here. I don't see any other members of the board of the Housing Authority here. So I'm just trying to set the background. We have a letter that was sent in June, I think it was, from
Yes.
HUD, which is, it's no Valentine. It's pretty tough. And it lists a lot of things that need to change. And we're just hoping things do change over there, and we thought we could bring this before the council, because one of the things that we can do is have public discussions. So I think that's a fair background, but I'm not sure what the Housing Authority's response to the June letter and the other discussions is going to be.
And I'll just add that I have many conference calls with our smart, tough, diligent group from Dallas, and you know, they start talking about receivership, which means that they would take over and the board would be null and void, and then they would make any decisions they want to make on that level. They have mentioned that in the last couple of calls, so they are tightening the noose, if you will. They are, you know, coming at us. So I'm hoping that we could catch up on some of these issues and move forward. I mean, you have 200 units, a little over 100 occupied. That's a lot of families. That's a lot of New Iberia people that their support is here. If they get shipped off to, you know, this talk of going to Lafayette or other communities, well, their whole support system is not there. So for me, you know, that's all of our citizens. That's all the people that we represent. So as I see that they are tightening and coming up with more verbiage that is not favorable for us, and time is going by, that the 17 audit, you know, now we're in 20, they don't seem to, for whatever reason, the tools aren't there to move ahead. I'm not arguing who took the tools out of the toolbox or who didn't do what, but it does seem to be that, you know, we don't have, or your board or our citizens that we represent, the tools aren't there to fix the car. That's just basically where we at. I don't know how to get it there, but I thought, talking to Jeff, maybe if we had a public meeting again, if you remember, we hosted a town hall meeting at the Slyman probably almost 2 years ago. We have had this issue discussed here before. We did replace a board member or two. We have made efforts to say, hey, you know, please help our citizens. Help yourself. So that's kind of where we are, and we just thought that a public discussion might raise some awareness and might maybe change, you know, be the catalyst to make some events happen. I know that without an audit, HUD will never give you any money. As time goes by, the repairs that you need are only getting worse. The units that are empty are, you know, by attrition, they're just becoming worse. And there's huge electrical problems, there's some other issues, they're not gonna fix themselves. So, you know, when I started hearing receivership, that's when I said, okay, I'm at my last ditch effort to be the communicator. It's not our housing, you know, authority. We are not HUD. It is not our responsibility, but we all care and we all represent people who live in these developments, and we want to see them stay. I don't want to lose 100 families to any community. So that's kind of where we are. I don't know what, I don't want to put you on the spot. You know, you are a board member, you were appointed by us. You filled the spot, actually. So, you know, I'm going to turn it over to you. And like I said, you're not on the spot. We're not beating anybody up. We're just looking to communicate to say, we're in the 11th hour. We got to do something.
Right. I'm one of 5 on the board, and I was invited here tonight, and I'm under the understanding that the others were also invited. I chose to show up. You all appointed me in September, and I have been working diligently and strenuously to make the changes. The way I see it is it's a checklist. When I first went to the meeting, they gave us a checklist. I have not been updated on the status of these issues since about December. I was not at the December meeting because I was not made aware of the December meeting. And yes, I voiced my strong opinion on that. I was told it was a communication error. Okay. Now what I can tell you about the audits, I know about 2 months ago, we passed a resolution. They have decided to, the executive director decided to piggyback on another organization, St. John the Baptist. And they got an auditor for the 19 and 20. I found out in our last meeting, I'm like, okay, why are we still looking for quotes on an auditor to say, well, we didn't cover 18. So in the process of getting quotes and bids for the 18 audit. We cannot progress or move to any of these programs until the audit is done. And I've been fighting since you appointed me to get to that point, and I am extremely excited that we finally at least got the other 2 scheduled. Hopefully this next one will be scheduled as well. But I'm only 1 on a board of 5. I can only move so far. The last meeting, there was a difference of opinion on one of the items on the checklist. I would like to advertise for a director. Another member would choose not to. I would like to treat the list that HUD gave us as a checklist. Let's do them, get it done, move forward, so that we can make decisions for ourselves. I do receive some opposition, and I'm told that I'm opinionated. Yes, I am. But I'm carefully research opinionated. I read and look up everything and consult with others. I've even spoken with the mayor. As for the empty apartments, I have been stressing and fighting for this since September. You gave me a duty, and anybody who knows me, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. If I don't know how, I'm going to seek advice or the expertise of someone who does know. And finally, that was somewhat satisfied. I was told at the last meeting where they were able to get 4 of them made ready. Part of the problem was procurement procedures. The new executive director was unfamiliar and had to be educated on this, and took some time to accept that what I was giving her was correct or proper, and now has come around to that. I do know at the last board meeting, I was surprised that the letter was not presented or brought up to be discussed. When I asked for it to be discussed, let's just say it was an exchange of words, because I presumed it was extremely important. And at one point in time, towards the end, I received confirmation from this person from St. John the Baptist. I apologize for not remembering the name. I wrote it down. I couldn't find it. But I was not aware that she was on the line, and she said that the executive director was doing fine and everything was okay and everything was progressing as it should, which in my opinion, with such a strongly worded letter, which I found was strong, what some others on the board felt it wasn't that strong. So there's a difference of opinion, but I'm 1 of 5. And I know one of the other items that I am working on is the minutes of the board meetings of the past. One of the other board members, Mr. Panat, he provided me with the ones that he could find, and I was cataloging them. They just need to be scanned and sent in, but they're not all there. I don't know what efforts being made by anyone else to get those minutes done to complete that item. That's all I have at this point in time. I asked for an update so that I could present it to you. The executive director refused, and the chairman refused. If you have any questions for me, I'd be able to happy to answer to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Natalie.
I have a couple questions, but Ms. Deal, they're actually not really, they're for Mr. Gotro, if he could approach.
Sure, it's not, Brian has nothing to do with the HUD housing project.
I
He's
understand.
Section 8.
I understand.
But Brian's always a wealth of knowledge. I mean, yeah.
No, I want to ask him another question.
But you,
I understand.
okay.
I
I'm just making it clear for the public.
Right.
Brian
No,
runs our Section 8 housing project.
He's in charge of
Section
Sec-
8
Section
does a
8.
great job, but he has nothing to do with HUD.
But he is also very knowledgeable.
I didn't say it.
And
Right.
I've spoken to him.
And that's why I want to
That's
ask
fine.
him some questions because I think he could enlighten me.
Okay.
Brian, with regard to this whole situation, what do you think are like the top 3 biggest obstacles that they are facing?
I've only participated in one meeting of the group, and my impression at that time was that there was a lack of knowledge and expertise with regard to management of the employees. I would say that's the greatest obstacle.
And was that before Ms. Deal came into the picture or after?
Well, Ms. Deal is not an employee.
Right, but I'm
I think
saying
it's-
as a board member. Was this before all of the changes
Yes.
you made?
Yes.
Okay. And with regard to the board and Ms. Deal, my problem that the thing that stuck out to me the most when you were speaking is the trying to collaborate these minutes. I mean, that is a huge deal, you know, to have, I mean, you know, and you know, I know, and I know you know. Do you feel that you have board members that are purposely being evasive?
It could be interpreted that way.
Okay. And Brian, what do you think it's gonna take to make this successful before it falls through? Because you know we're there, we're very close. So if you were to be put on this board tomorrow, what would like your top 3 pieces of advice be? As someone who's successfully run our Section 8 program, I mean successfully.
I think what's crucial is a knowledge of the applicable federal regulations, a successful attempt to to successfully communicate with the HUD field office. Each agency, be it the City of New Iberia for the Section 8 program or the Housing Authority, reports and is supervised by the field office. So I would say knowledge, communication, then to have a plan of action, and to accomplish that plan of action in accordance with HUD regulation.
And so, Ms. Deal, currently, who is your primary person who communicates with the field office?
That would be Tisha Moss, the interim executive director.
Okay. And is that related to the position how you were mentioning earlier that you would like?
One of the stipulations that is in the June 22nd letter is that we hire an executive director. That was supposed to have been done by the end of either November or December. And I found out in the December meeting that I was not present. They decided to postpone that until July, of
And-
which I adamantly objected at the next meeting.
And what is the main opposition from the board to appoint her in that position?
That's part, I don't want to appoint her. I want to advertise
Advertise,
for
okay.
someone.
Okay, well,
Some-
I'm sorry, let me rephrase.
Right.
What is the main opposition to fulfilling that task?
The impression I'm receiving is that they want her to continue that position, and I do not find that to be a good fit.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I'm not gonna question you. I just want to make a comment. Having some experience with boards. Thank you, Ms. Ledbetter. We've been on training together. She's very smart with board governance seem like that's the major problem. Board governance. Seem like that's the major problem. I look at all of these deficiencies, and all of them are worthy of shutting this organization down. I understand that we don't appoint board members by district or by council, but seem like the board, and I said this at the last meeting we talked about this, seem like the board needs a makeover. The proof is in the pudding. You're the only one here, and this is some major stuff.
Correct.
You know, this ain't, you know, anything that come to federal government is major concerning a nonprofit.
Correct. And I want you all to know that I took your appointment with me seriously
Exactly.
and sincerely.
Exactly.
And I wanted you all to know that.
So, I mean, it's board governance, and I think whatever part the city plays, influentially or mandated, we need to, as a body, look at the board. If we're truly gonna save this organization, you know, I lived in A.B. Simon housing. We called it the projects, it's subdivision, whatever you want to call it. And I remember it being family oriented. I passed that other day, but I was so happy to see the grass was cut. You know, I always go past over there because I used to live 1039 Audrey Street. I used to live there for like 2 years, from 81 to 82, 10 to 12 years old. And we played there, we had fun, we walked right there to West End Park. I went the other day, it looked like a ghost town. But the grass was cut, so that made me feel good. Last time I went, the grass was about 3 feet high. So, you know, I saw some improvement in the grass, but, you know, we got some, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm passionate because they're gonna call me. We were one of the first people to get called, myself and Sherry and Ms. Ledbetter, because every one of them is in our district. And I thank you, Jeff and Mayor, for letting the public know that it's not only is it not our fault, but we can't push hard to continue funding, you know, this housing authority so that they can house people. We can't push that. But like I said, whether it be by mandate or influence, we need to correct some of these corrective actions. And I know it's two different organizations, but Ms. Ledbetter tells us, we went through it with Smile Community Action. It was all about the board. And we made some changes. It was all about the board, it was all about the CEO. You can't play with that stuff.
I know.
You know, so to me, and I would never try to get in and point fingers, but let's be real. We all adults, we all got eyes, we all got ears, and we all can read.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna tiptoe around that subject, I'm not gonna call no names, but it's strictly board governance that's
Yes.
causing this place to go down.
Yes. I have a
Thank you, Ms.
question.
Deal.
I'm not
Thank
sure
you for
that's
showing
not-
up as well.
You're welcome.
It's one concern.
Have you all considered having the board and the interim director come in and respond to these issues?
Well, I thought that's what we were going to get tonight.
Oh, my.
But yes, ma'am, and I will
Okay.
continue to try to make that happen. You know, I am hoping that maybe at a later date or another meeting. Like I said, my point of this tonight was to stir up some conversation, which we were doing, was to get our opinions out there, was to allow the residents who live there, the people who support them in our community, and the board itself to kind of hear our frustration and to understand our next steps. And I think that we're heading there. But to me, you know, having a public discussion is, that's why we have a public meeting. So, but my hope was for that to happen tonight, and I kind of think it might happen in the near future.
You see, I care about the residents.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
is stressful to worry about where you're gonna lay your head at night, whether you're gonna have a roof over your head.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't like others playing Russian roulette with other people's safety, security, and just being able to have their kids in a home. You know, you don't want the kids homeless because it affects them too. That's PTSD. They could be traumatized by that. And that's what I want to avoid. So I'm doing, believe me, everything I
Oh,
possibly can.
we know that. I got a
To
few other boards
make
I'd
a
like you to
change.
serve on.
And
it's
get things
it's refreshing
done.
to see somebody take, you know, their role seriously.
Yes.
And I appreciate it.
Yes, because this is a serious issue. It's
It
where
is.
they're going to live. Any other questions?
Anybody else?
I'll give it my best
Question,
shot.
comments? Okay, well, a bunch of them. Jeff.
Well,
I was
just
calling the
wanna-
attorney
I
first.
just want to point out that the latest HUD letter, which is June 22nd, 2020, is 6 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
And it is chapter and verse. And I think Mr. Lewis was referring to that. It's in your packets, so you can see exactly what the problems are. And, we're talking kind of in generalities, but these are very specific requirements that these people are making. I'm not sure what we can do to get that board before this group. I don't know. Do you think that would be, it'd be worthwhile to schedule, to ask them again to come before this group? Because I know you got involved in this fairly late and came forward, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. But if this does not change, this place is going to get shut down.
It is. And I mean,
No.
it's in black and white in those letters. I mean,
And we
it's
can
coming.
only delay this so long. The HUD people are not happy exactly with the mayor because, he's bought time for the board, and it hadn't really worked out.
Correct. Can we give everybody one, and then I'll come back now. Mr. Broussard.
Other parishes are having similar troubles like we having?
Good question.
Other troubles, other parishes? I mean,
parishes have had-
this is disappointing to hear that we have a group, and we have rooftops that we losing. That's disappointing to hear. And we have no control, what I'm hearing, to get into this group, to get it and get it done. There's gotta be a way we can get it done. And not have this year in, year out. Look like if they can't get it under control, we have to find somebody that can go push it along.
In
And
some
we'd like the whole group to be here, to give, that's rooftops in New Iberia Parish, that's what we worried about. And darn it, it shouldn't be this disrepair,
No, it should not.
at all. Should have people living in these houses. So that's my opinion, and it is disgraceful to hear that this is going on. And we'd like the whole group over here in front of us, because you're in Iberia Parish, in the city of New Iberia, and it should be accountable. Because we don't want empty houses. Nobody wants that in their district.
No.
I don't want an empty house in my district for years. For that, no, it's unsightly. So we should get to the bottom of this. And
In some
one way or the other.
communities, Mr. Broussard, the boards have been replaced, and then the
Yeah.
boards have voted to tear down and abolish the whole complex.
Yeah.
And then they move to their other programs. They either move to a Section 8 program and disperse people throughout, or, there's another alternative, which is RAD, which comes in and privatizes and someone comes and manages it. I actually, with Jeff's help, we put a meeting together and got a RAD specialist to meet with some board members, and we pitched that idea because that was something, they come in and renovate, they bring in private dollars, they're 200 units. Well, they could have renovated the 100 units that were empty, then moved our families into an upgraded unit, and then renovated the other ones. They are a for-profit because they are private, but it does work. That was another kind of, out-of-the-box idea that when we kind of researched that, we thought it might work, and we did facilitate a meeting with that. There are some communities that are near us that are switching to RAD, so that's another alternative. But to answer your question, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, they ended up just tearing down
Right.
and switching to Section 8.
And that's one of the reasons I pushed for the audits, because I know that we can't do RAD without the audits.
Right.
You
And
have to
RAD would
have
be
the
another
audit for them
alternative.
to come in. And that's why I've been pushing for them to source and get the audits done.
Who's next? Dan.
Mayor, I know with the parish, whenever someone's appointed to a board, they have to be there to accept that position.
Right.
Some reason we need to make it where at least once a year, people of these boards that we vote to put on show up at a meeting. If they can't show up to the most important
Sunday.
meeting as this, that says a lot. If you can't make it, you send a memo, let you know. It says a lot about those people concerned. Look, if you don't like your boss, that doesn't mean you should do a bad job. They disagree with you, they still have a job. And it just blows my mind that no one else showed up. I know everybody's got excuses, but we affecting 200 plus families. And it's a shame it had to get to this, But sometime when it gets this far, it's
Wow.
too late.
Well,
And when I just think somehow, these people gotta be accountable, because you know what? It comes back on us. Accepting them being on these boards, at the end of the day, we're the one that gave them the authority and the trust to make this go forward, and all that failed.
that is why for almost
You
2
know.
years now, we have taken this very serious and taken every step we could because we do feel responsible.
And I think, and I wanna thank her for coming today, because it seemed like you did more work in the last 3 months than has been gone for the last couple of years, and I'm not on top of it like the mayor is, but I want to thank you for showing up. And that says a lot about what you care about this position that was given to you and the concern of the citizens. So I think something has to be done in the future to make these boards
Okay.
more
That's
responsible.
a good idea.
Thank you.
I'm gonna keep going around so everybody has a turn. Who was next?
I am.
Okay.
Actually, you wasn't. And Mayor,
Oh.
I've been sitting here with my
Well,
finger
then,
up all this time.
I didn't
and I've
even-
been real patient.
Okay.
And one of the things I know you to be a fair man. I do have these people in my district, and I've been waiting here, and I've been having my finger up, my pencil's been up, and you've been all around the board. But I'll yield back to my colleague right here, Ms. Ledbetter, Councilwoman Ledbetter. I've been having my pencil up. You
Okay.
went to Mr. Broussard, you went to the Mayor Pro Tem, now you're going to Ms. Deidre Ledbetter, and I've been having my pencil up very patiently, sir. But I know you to be a fair man, but I don't mind waiting. Councilwoman Ledbetter? Because I'm the one that they call a lot. I mean, I don't know if they call the Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Broussard, and the rest of them, but I do have something to say. Councilwoman
Well, I have one,
and Ms. Ledbetter.
yeah, Markham Holmes is in my district, and I have conversated with, a few of the residents there. And, one lady in particular has asthma and other respiratory problems, and she couldn't get a filter for her air conditioner. It was just, you know, real pitiful and all, and I did call, the acting, executive director, and she told me that she was gonna see that the filter is taken care of. I haven't gotten a call from the lady again saying that it wasn't done, but we're talking about the board. We had the board members to come in. We had most of them to come in. We had the thing at the Slyman where all the residents were asked to come in all. So we've been there, we've done that. So I had asked the director to let me know when they were gonna have a meeting. She told me she would let me know. Now, however, the pandemic came up too during that time, cause it was maybe about February when I contacted her about it. So I know that happened, but she was supposed to let me know when they were gonna have a meeting. She did tell me about they needed the audits and all. And audits that hadn't been approved. Well, at least, it seems like we moved to that, past that, and we have somebody that's gonna do the audit. Leadership starts from the top. I know that most of the board members, they're very nice people. But leadership is not always nice. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do to get things done. And that is not gonna happen with the leadership on that board. It's just not. I thought that we were gonna have a good, director interim, but that hasn't seemed to work out, out either. So I think that the board, the council here, we need to do what we have to do. We've given them the opportunity to try to work things out. We met with them. We've done all of that, and now we seriously need to take some action and take control of this thing, because it seems like we have you there, but you don't have that much help in getting things done. And I think they do need a new executive director. I mean, we've done it with Smile, somebody that was interim, they had to apply like everybody else. You know, put it out. That person can apply. They may get the job, like they may not. So, you know, throw it out there. You never know what you're going to get. You might find the perfect person, and maybe it's not the current person, or maybe it is. So, you know, we need to do something. We, as a body here, need to do something. We need to take control of this thing if we don't want to lose the program. And that's on you, Mayor, to take care of that.
It's on all of us.
Well, you know, you have the power to redo the board.
Actually, it's all of us. It's not just me. I can't do it without you. You can't do it without me, but I can't do it without you. And what could happen is, just right, we can replace the board. The board can appeal. They appeal to this body. So if we would say, you know, these board members leave, they come here. If they want to appeal it, they appeal to this body. If you uphold the decision, but it's our decision, and you uphold that decision, then the next thing is like how we got Mr. Carolyn. We go out, we get new board members, we bring them forth, you vote on them, and then we replace the board.
And it may not be every board member.
No,
Yeah,
not necessarily.
Right. But I mean, it's a process. That would be the next step. You know, if that's what we choose to do, and that's one of the reasons we're bringing this forward, is to have a discussion of all our options. That is one of our options.
I mean, this was our option 2 years ago, too, and we haven't moved from that point, really. We're still there.
Yeah, we tried a whole lot of stuff, and I'll be the first to admit it hasn't worked.
So we need to take some different action. And I'm ready to do that.
Okay. Councilwoman Guidry.
Councilwoman Ledbetter alluded to some of the things that I was trying to say earlier. I appreciate all of the comments that was made up here, because actually everyone said a little bit about what I wanted to say. And being that we've been through the, and also I agree with the mayor as well, we did take several actions over those 2-year period through COVID-19 and the civil unrest. I was taking a look at a lot of these letters. I reviewed them at home, and I just kind of glanced over them again. Ms. Deal, a lot of this delinquent letters and discrepancies is truly an atrocity for the people that we represent. And the truth of the matter is, I think Councilman Marlin said it best. We're the ones that they actually call. We're the ones that, and then we have to try to go through the process over the phone, that we're actually not directly responsible for some of the decisions that are being made. So I was gonna ask, Mayor, is either one or two options that I'm leaning towards, is either have Commissioner Panat, Commissioner, when Ms. Carolyn is here, Commissioner Darren Sofas, Commissioner Delana Booty, and Interim Executive Director Tisha Moss Charles all show up, and also Commissioner Fred Wesley all show up at the next meeting to address the council. And since we are in an emergency, I don't see it us trying to kick the can down the road and wait till there's a red light and where we can't move any further, or we're in receivership by this time tomorrow, and then next thing you know, there's nothing to be done. While the getting is good, I think we ought to hit it and quit it. And I think that we ought to have these people before us and discuss it again. Anything is worth discussing. So if no one showed up tonight, maybe we can do it again on tomorrow, on the next meeting, Mayor, if you don't mind, or if everyone is ready to make a decision on tonight, to what Ms. Councilwoman Ledbetter said, I mean, I'm ready for that as well. I would prefer to discuss it again, and I would prefer them to actually come to this board, to the council meeting, and put on the agenda, and also address as persons to address the council. And then the council can ask questions again. They can also talk to us again, and we can, I mean, we have the reports in front of us, and we could ask questions, and we can find out, again, what's the problem. At that time, I think we ought to be prepared to make some decisions, as far as maybe even some new board commissioners, or maybe, you know, something else, but I just don't know. I think we shouldn't wait till we're in receivership to decide.
Yeah. I'm fine. That's kind of what I thought was going to happen tonight. So I will
I don't mean to
make
be
the
rough.
effort.
I mean,
I'll make the effort to do it again.
I'm a leader too, and like Miss Councilwoman Ledbetter alluded to, sometimes we have to make some tough decisions. But I mean, we have to love the people that we represent, and I love all of mine. And so it's just we're already in a tough spot with COVID-19, civil unrest, and I just can't imagine further down the road when we come out of this, then we have 200 families that, you know, is in an uproar for this particular issue. Thank you. I'll yield back at this time.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I'd just like to clarify one thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bernard has helped the office a lot with old documents from past times. He kept all his. And so he was able to bring some to me and get the minister, but also to the office. So he has been working to help get these things cleared personally.
Good.
Other than just on the board.
I understand. Good. Councilman Swear.
All right, I'll just say this. I don't have any of these properties in my district. I don't. But I'm sitting here with all of you, listening to the complaints, listening to what she has to say. Appreciate you coming, by the way. Like they've all said, 1 out of 5 members, you know, I appreciate you doing that. We brought it up quite a few times about we have a duty to do up here. But when it comes to the federal housing, it's not on we. Like you said it quite a few times. So all we can do is just appoint these board members, right?
Correct.
And that's it.
That's our one.
There's no other. There's nothing else that
We have
can't reach.
tried to do much more than that because we all care.
Right.
But you said it. Our only real role in this is to appoint the board.
So that's basically what it all boils down to.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Anything further? Did I miss anybody? I will set up for the next meeting. I will make sure that our clerk contacts every one of them and see if we can't do this again at the next meeting. I think this was good. I can't thank you enough for coming. And, you know, when you got a problem, you got to talk about it. So I'm sure we'll be talking about it. Thank you very much for all you do.
Okay.
All right. Now we're moving on to item 4. Madam Clerk.
Presentation of the October 31st, 2019 year-end independent auditors report presented by Burton Colder and Brad Colder of the firm Colder, Shumpon and Slavin and Company.
Afternoon, gentlemen.
Good evening. I'm going to lead off tonight. My name is Brad, and I'm going to hand over to my dad after I do my part. I'm going over the October 31st, 2019 audit. We normally would have presented these results earlier, but due to COVID-19, we're here tonight. I'd like to start by saying that we have no internal control, compliance, or medical letter findings. This is something you do have every now and again. You didn't have any in 2018, and here again in 2019, you don't have any. That's good news. I'm happy to report that. Also would like to report that we had 19 verbal comments in the 2018 audit, which we met with the mayor and the CFO and some other people. And in this year, we only had 9. So they cut it down from 19 verbals down to 9. They might say, what's a verbal versus the other one? It's something that's not severe enough to go in the audit report. It's something that could maybe be done more efficiently, better, what have you. It's not necessarily a problem, it's something that can be done better. The good news is we're moving in the right direction. I want to report that to the body. Another thing is, the audit report itself is an unmodified or clean opinion. That is the best opinion that we can give as CPAs, and that's the opinion we received in 2018, and that's the opinion we are here to deliver tonight for October 31st, 2019. That's what I have as far as opening comments, and if there's no questions about those comments, I'd like to go to page 78 of the audit report. And page 78 is the sewer fund. And you have 2018 and 19 numbers displayed here. I'm not going to go through each number for the sake of time, but as I'm going through, if you have a question, please feel free to stop me and we can address your question at that time. Looking at the top, you have operating revenues, and these are comprised of charges for services to customers and parish government, the cooperative agreement that you have. Total revenues in 2018 were $5,297,000. and that number increased by approximately 70,000 to 5,367,000 in 2019. So a healthy increase in the revenues of approximately 70,000. Looking at the operating expenses, which is comprised of cost of services rendered and depreciation, this number is virtually the same year over year, as you can see. 5,726,000 in 2018, an increase of only 10,000 in the current year to 5,736,000. Only a $10,000 increase in the expense. And you can see we do show an operating loss in both years, but the loss got a good bit smaller here in 2019. The loss in 2018 was 428,000, and that loss decreased, as I just said, 60,000 to 368,000 in the current year. You have quite a few non-operating revenues and expenses. The expenses are in parentheses. You can see that first line item is federal grant revenue, and it's substantially larger. 94,000 of revenue in this line item in 2018, up to 875,000. This is two LCDBG grants you receive for sewer improvements. And that is the reason for the 875,000 that you have in this line item in the current year. Investment income did increase from 51,000 to almost 75,000 in 2019, and interest expense and fiscal charges decreased from 288,000 down to 209,000. Non-employer pension contributions virtually the same, 39,000 versus 41. And other expenses and revenues, that's why you see the word net, because it's kind of being netted here at this line item. 6,200 in 2018 versus 37,600 in 2019. In saying all that mouthful, you can see total operating revenues in the current year of 820,000 versus 96,000 of expense last year. Obviously, the federal grants that we received are the reason for the flop from having the expense net last year versus the revenue net this year. Looking at the income that we had before contributions and transfers, you had a loss of this line item of 525,000 last year. This year you have an income of 451,000. As we just talked about, this is due to the federal grant revenue. You may not have that next year. You may. Who knows? I know the mayor is always out there beating the bushes, so to speak, to get new grants, so we may see more grants here again. Capital contributions of almost 29,000 this year versus almost 5,000 last year. And you see the change in net position, a positive 480,000 in the current year versus a negative 520,000 last year. So roughly $1 million swap over the 2 years. And then you have the change in the net position ending. Most of this $37 million is comprised of the assets of the system itself. Went over that fairly quickly, but any questions on what I just covered on page 78? If there's no questions, we have several exhibits, and I'd like to take a look at Exhibit 1. Does everybody have the handout? And Exhibit 1 is the per customer per month breakdown for the city of New Iberia. And we have 2016 through 2019 displayed in front of you. The first line is the approximate number of customers. And you can see it's kind of been on the decline over the past 4 years, not tremendously, but slightly. You can see back in 16 we had 12,000 customers, and the current year we're at roughly 11,750. So not a huge decline, but a little bit of a decline. The next line item is the income. This would be the expense to the citizen, the income to the city. And you can see it's been increasing, not by a lot, but steadily from 2017 to the current year. In 2017 it was 3528, increased to 3774 in 18, and up to 3808 in the current year. What did it cost to generate this revenue? Roughly $40 each year, you can see. I mean, we were at 42 in 2016, but looking at 17 through 19, you're hovering between $40 and $40 and almost $41 in the current year. It leaves you with operating losses each year. Now, the good news about these losses, if you look back at 16 and the trend is these losses are getting smaller. An operating loss of 2016 of 625, you'll decrease that to 438 in 17, then you decreased it again in 18 to 279, and a slight decrease here again in 2019 to a loss of 263. So you'd like to be about break even here. You're not trying to make a ton of money, you're trying to be break even, and you're getting closer to that point, which is good news. When you add back the depreciation of these items that we've paid for and we're expensing them over time, you can see it's a fairly substantial amount of money, again, when you're looking at it on a per customer per month basis. And in the current year, we're adding back $15.34. So you might say, well, you know, what's this bottom line operating income without depreciation? It's essentially what are you generating in cash per customer per month. And that's what that bottom line is, and you are generating $12.71 this year versus $12.60 last year. And here, that's a pretty good trend. You're at $12.26 and $16, so you're pretty much holding a slight increase there. So I would say we're moving in the right direction in the sewer fund. Like I said, you'd like to see it operating right about break even, but we're moving in the right direction. Any questions on Exhibit 1?
Just a comment, we had 50 more customers. In 2018, we were 11,698. We
Right.
picked up 50 in a year. So if I can do that a few more years, we'll be all right.
Because, right, I mean, you have the capacity to have a lot more
We do,
customers,
we
and
do.
those expenses
And that's kind
come
of
up
my
for the
point.
same.
We certainly do.
So to go along with the mayor's point, if you can increase your customer base, that's the easiest way.
I got to
and
take
best
the
way.
win where I can.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. It's a good point.
One thing that we did do, not this council prior, is that we implemented a cost of living increase with the sewer user fee that automatically did every year. That's helping us catch up, because we went about 8 years with no increase of sewer user fee, but our expense was going up. So we got to a compromise, and we put a cost of living, so the sewer user fee goes up with the cost of living every year from now on.
It's an excellent point.
And it is much cheaper still.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
That was a tough vote, but we did it.
No, but it's a good point.
But,
It is.
I'm
we
glad you did.
are much cheaper still on sewer user fee than the parish is. So it's still more efficient to live in the city,
Right.
to have sewer.
Some of our other governmental bodies that have implemented the same type of system you're talking about, they're in the position you're in, or maybe even better if they implemented earlier. Those that have not have massive losses.
Right.
And they're having to subsidize the utility funds with sales tax or some other types of revenues, but you don't want to do that, so I agree with you 100%, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And to go along with that point, it's actually an excellent transition, if there's no further comment on Exhibit 1 to Exhibit 2. And Exhibit 2 gives you a breakdown of, in 2019, some other municipalities compared to the city of New Iberia. And you can see we have City of Carencro, City of Lafayette, City of Broussard, and City of Leesville. And you can see the population, or I say population, number of customers varies wildly. New Iberia being the second most populous on the page, Lafayette being the largest, Carencro, Broussard, Leesville, roughly around the same. And you look at the income, they're all fairly close. You know, New Iberia is most comparable to Carencro from revenues. Lafayette's a little bit higher, 56 and change. That's what I have to pay. And then you look at Broussard at 1624, and that goes along with your point, Dan, is that they didn't really implement the system you were talking about, and you can see that at 1624. And then look at their cost is really the same as yours, $42. So it's not that they have an expense problem; they have a revenue problem. And you can see when you keep going down at Broussard and you look 1841 in depreciation, and they're losing roughly $750 in cash per customer per month. So that's why I said it was an excellent point, because if you don't have your kind of system, and they're trying to dig out of that hole, but it's a deep hole to dig out of. You guys are doing better than that. You can see Carencro revenues are a little bit higher than yours, expenses a little bit lower, so they actually have an operating income, and generating about $18 in per customer per month cash. But 3 of the 5 shown, if you look at the middle in bold operating income or loss, 3 of the 5 do have operating losses. So it's not uncommon to see. You want to, after you add back that depreciation, at least be cash positive. This city is, most of the other cities that we work on are, however, unfortunately, Broussard is not. But 1271, that's a decent number, certainly a decent number. Any questions about anything I went over? Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, page 78? If there's no further comment, I'm going to hand it over to my daddy, who will go over the government as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we appreciate being here tonight to report these results. I'm going to go on to exhibit number 3, and this, instead of going through this 90-page report, we tried to condense everything which we've done in the past and taken all the revenues compared to your budget, the final amended budget for the city in October year ending October 31, 2019. Over on exhibit 3 on the right side, you have 3 additional years, 16, 17, and 18. These are actual numbers from the audits of those particular years. I'm going to focus more on the actual numbers for 19, and we can look back towards 18 and the previous years. For example, ad valorem tax was $4,573,000 for the current year, and last year was pretty much the same, $4,575,000. So we're within $2,000. Even the year before that was $4.5 million. 4,588,000, and in 16 was 4,485,000. Sales tax revenues, if you look at those have been increasing, but we have to look at the reasons why. One of the reasons is in 18 is when we implemented the new half-cent sales tax for the police department. I think we have maybe 4 months in that fiscal year that we collected it. Of course, in 19, we have a full year. So our revenues in 18 with 4 months of collections approximately of the new tax was 15.4 million. That tax brings in about $1.6 million a year. Look at this year's, we're at $17,077,000 for the current year. And of course, 16 and 17 were basically $13 million. Sales taxes were pretty much flat in those years. Franchise tax was $1,850,000 for the current year. Last year was $1,939,000, and in 17 was $1,834,000. So it runs about $1.8 million to $1.9 million a year. Licenses and permits, those are relatively consistent each year. In 19, it brought in $1,583,000. Last year was $1,580,000. And intergovernmental revenues, this is revenues coming from another governmental source. And as Brad pointed out earlier, as we talked about with the mayor in our exit with him, you've had more grant monies coming in this past year, and you were at $3,237,000 compared to last year, $2,590,000. And you've been at basically $2.5 million for 17 as well. So this year, and in talking to Freddie, it looks like hopefully we've got some opportunities for some additional grants going forward. This does, I want to mention, it does take more time because these grants have to be audited, and especially if they're large enough, it creates what we call a single audit, which is a federal requirement. And if you don't do a good job with the audit results of that single audit, well then it deters you from getting future grants down the road. Sort of what you guys were talking about earlier with the section, with the housing authority. And they don't have any audits, but they haven't had good audits in the past, so it stirs some problems. I'm happy to say that this year, you know, we're good. The single audit results were good. That is submitted to the National Clearinghouse, and they look at those results. So if you don't do a good job and they get our report, they're going to come down on you. So keep up what you're doing, and hopefully we can continue to get some grants, man.
Yes, sir.
Charges for services, this is what Brad just went over. We had $5,520,000. Last year was $5,436,000. Fines and forfeits, $43,000 this year. Last year was only $2,900. The year before that was $3,500. Remember, you just implemented the city's police department. I think it was in July of 18 that you began to have that. So now you're patrolling your own streets as opposed to the sheriff's department doing it. Miscellaneous revenues, sort of a catch-all, but there's a lot of interest income and various other miscellaneous income. It runs about $1.9 million, or right at $2 million this past year. Last year was about $1.5 million, $1,467,000 to be exact. Total revenues for the city of New Iberia were budgeted at $34.1 million. Very conservative. Came in at $35.8 million. Again, you can look up above and you can see the charges for services, for some reason, were budgeted at only $4.2 million, but they've been running $5.5 million pretty much consistently in the previous years. So that was one of the big reasons why the actual budget was higher than what was, the actual was higher than what was anticipated. And look up above in sales tax, that was also budgeted conservatively. You had $16,731,000 on the budget. It actually came in at 17 million. So those two factors are the two big factors that enabled you to have a huge surplus of about 5.3% in revenues, over and above what you had anticipated in the final budget. Now, how were the monies spent? And let's look at that. Administrative, $2,366,000 this year, actual number. Last year was $2,223,000. Year before that was $2,252,000. On the public safety, this is police and fire, $11,339,000 this year. Of that, about $5 million is fire, and the balance of about $6 million or $6.5 million is police. Last year was $12,618,000. Remember, last year, y'all were gearing up to get the police department going. We incurred some initial startup costs, which is expense. You were also paying the sheriff's department for probably 8 months out of that year. So consequently, you can see that's why it was higher. But this year, we're right at 11,339,000, and that includes, as I said, police and fire. Public Works, 2,858,000 is the actual number this year. Last year was 2,502,000. Garbage department, 4,622,000 versus 4,585,000. Very, very close here. The culture and recreation, 1,014,000 this year, is 1,139,000 last year. Again, very consistent, under budget as well. The urban redevelopment and housing, this is your Section 8 program, which you talked about a little bit earlier. You can see we spent 1,368,000. Last year was 1,330,000. All of that is funded, obviously, from the feds. And again, I think it was mentioned that you're doing a good job with that, and so consequently, that's working out very, very well for you. Utility expenses, this is the sewage fund, which Brad just went over, 3,573,000 of expenses, plus the depreciation of 2,163,000. Now, the debt service on all the principal retirement for your debt, you spent $2,095,000 in principal retirement this year versus $2,075,000 last year. On the interest and fiscal charges, $692,000 versus $702,000. Obviously, as you pay more of the principal each year, generally the interest will go down, and it is coming down some. Capital outlay, $951,000. And you can see total expenditures for this year, you had budgeted to spend $34,105,000. You spent $1 million less than that, at $33,046,000, $1,059,000 below budget, which is great. And that's 3.3% below budget. So did a good job there. It's a conservative budget. It's I like to see this. It's conservative on the revenue side, but also on the expenditure side, you try and get it as realistic as possible. But you hit both benchmarks in a positive fashion. Excess or deficiency at this line item, towards the middle of the page, you had anticipated having a surplus for the year of about $12,000. You ended up at $2,835,000. That's great. It's quite a bit better than what was anticipated. Look at last year. At this line item, you had a deficiency of $2.5 million, and the previous year was a deficiency of $1,586,000. The excess or deficiency of revenues, you add back some appropriations of $10,000, and this year, which was an appropriation out, and the prior year we had some proceeds from some issuance of some debt. You had issued some capital lease debt and also some other debt for the police situation. It was $2.8 million. So at this line item, we were at $2,825,000 for the current year versus $309,000 positive last year. Brad mentioned it earlier, that grant revenue and other revenues of $983,000, and of course backing off the interest and the fiscal charges of $209,000. That leaves you with other revenues net of $848,000. Bottom line for the city of New Iberia, on a $36 million budget, you ended up the year in a positive fashion at 10% of that $36 million, or $3,674,000 surplus. That's phenomenal. I don't think I've ever seen it this high in any of the years that I've been auditing. And I know, Dan, you've been here, you said 19 years, you probably haven't seen it this good. So
We were so excited that last year we had
178,000. 178,000. So
I'm so glad to see.
Great job,
without
guys.
the little brackets. You know, it took me a few years to write these brackets. Because
It's not in
sometimes
red.
it's positive, sometimes it's negative. But I know it's negative here.
when it's exactly, and it's not red, it's in brackets as opposed to being, but it is truly a deficit. But you can see how much you've come around, as Dan pointed out. And like I said, this is the best I've ever seen, and you just acknowledge it's the best you've seen in 19 years.
I want to go out with a bang.
That's great. Here you are. So keep up the good work, guys. I mean, you're doing a good job with it. My suggestion is to keep that up. Okay, are there any questions that I might be able to address?
I have a question in
Sure.
the book.
All right,
On page 60.
60, all right?
I got two questions. On page 60, it's about the employee and how much we cover the employee. And you see on a municipal employee retirement statement, 26%. It's like every year it goes up 2%. Is that the norm? You see the first line?
Yes, yeah. The percentage, contributions as a percentage of covered employee payroll. Yeah,
Right. So
that's the state systems.
that's the state
Yep,
system
yep.
that we have no control over, but we're responsible for.
Nope,
That's correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
And look at this Louisiana
Yeah.
State Employees Retirement System,
Yeah, I know.
Dan.
Yeah.
39%.
Yeah.
Yep,
And I got one more question.
sure.
On page 32. I'm gonna be light because I only got the book tonight, so I don't have much yellow marks on it. Our on number G and H, our tax for the economic development area,
Yes,
we collected. You're showing 223,999 and 19.
yes, sir.
And 13 on 182.
That's the little bitty one.
That's a little bitty one, but that's one that we can put back into that area.
Yes.
Do you have the numbers somewhere in this book for 218? You know,
Not in this book. I don't think we would have it in this book, Dan.
I'm just, because the sales tax has a lot to do with the kind of business that we are bringing in,
Uh-huh.
new ones versus existing ones. I was just wondering how, if it increased from 218 to 219.
I have the 18 books, so let's take a look.
So we
at
just
them.
really implemented it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not
No,
sure
it's-
what
it-
year.
It definitely went up.
Yeah.
Those economic development taxes were not in place.
No, they weren't even in place then.
At the end of
Not
the year.
existed.
Effect until
Yep.
the 2019 fiscal
So
year.
this is
That
our
is
first
absolutely
year
right.
with it?
Yes.
So we had none last year.
We had none last year. I just checked it out in the book, and that's
And
correct.
as of right now, those dollars are just sitting there. We did not
We have
use them
not,
yet
we have not touched
to,
that money
to
yet.
bond any money or do anything.
No,
It's just,
no.
Right.
It's coming, but no, we haven't done a thing with it yet.
And this was voted on many years ago, and with this council was just implemented,
Yes. Yes.
where it could have been implemented.
How many years ago was it implemented? Was it voted on? Let me say that.
Oh, it was voted on.
10 years ago, you think?
No,
Dan?
not that long. It was during the election.
So
No, it
let's
was,
say 5.
I say at least 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And it took this council to make a decision, this mayor, to finally implement something where we could get dollars to reinvest in that area. Parish did it way before us and benefited all kind of things that we lost out.
Parish has one of the largest TIF
Yeah.
districts. We bring in about $25,000 a month, which is, it's great. We're gonna utilize that money. They bring in about $250,000 a month.
But I just want to let the council know this is a big deal.
It is.
When we voted on it, I don't think people understood how big a deal in the future it will be for us to do some improvements in that area.
And it's
And get
huge,
some more
and we
business.
have several of our clients, Lafayette being one of our clients. And everybody knows that big, where the Target is on right off of I-10.
On Louisiana
All,
Avenue.
exactly.
All that was for a TIF.
Was nothing. It was nothing there. Y'all remember that, and that's all TIF. That's been phenomenal. And there's several other TIF districts in Lafayette, but several of our other clients in Lafayette Parish have it as well, and they've done great with that.
And to re-educate the public, this is a tax that's in a certain area that only you pay in that area.
In that area.
When you buy, but the money can be used only in that area.
That's correct.
This
We
is a
reinvested there.
unique thing that I think Fred Mills probably
He did.
got going years ago.
But it's a catalyst to,
Yes.
and I don't have to tell
Oh,
the mayor that, I know he
development.
knows, it's a catalyst to attract other business,
Right.
and you can do certain things in that district to bring them in, and it brings in more revenue, so it compounds on it.
But I-
So it's a
We're
great
blessed
thing.
as a city to own property
Yeah.
in that TIF district that we are talking to developers and we'll be
Right.
able to put infrastructure in to get some new business. If you look, I did this today, Rouse's, Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby, and Ross Dress for Less. That's 245 new jobs that we brought in. You wanna know why this is up? This is up because those people spend money in town, those people live in our town, not even including the sales taxes. A dollar turns over 7 times, they
That's
say.
what I was about to ask
That's
you. I thought it was 6 or 7, but
Yeah,
it's 7
that's
times.
245 jobs, and that's what this TIF money will allow us to do in that TIF district is bring some more jobs. You know, that's the ticket.
And if you have the jobs, Mayor, you can keep the people here instead of them driving down the road to Lafayette or Youngsville or whatever.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, so, no question. It's a good thing, Dan, and I'm glad that it's now turned on, I'm gonna call it.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
any additional questions or comments?
Anybody have questions?
All right, I'm gonna go over a few other things with you. We just looked at the operations in Exhibit 2, okay? And we saw that we had 36 million, we ended up with a surplus of about 10% or 3.6 million. I'd like to look at page 64 at this point. Like I said, the operations were great for the year. Page 64 is gonna give you a snapshot of what assets the city owned, what debts it owed, including bonded debt, and what's the net bottom line, what's the debt position. So let's look at this. I'm gonna focus on the third column on this page, which is the totals for the city for 19. It has governmental activities, business activities, but the third column is the total for 19. And then on the far right, we have the 18 numbers. Cash and interest-bearing deposits, last year you ended up the year at October 31, 18 at 17.7 million. In 19, we ended up at $22.6 million. Accounts receivable, pretty close, 662,000 versus 682,000. Due from other governments, 2.8 million last year, 3.5 million this year. The real estate held for sale is 61,000 both years. Restricted assets, these are assets that are required by bond requirements or whatever, and also any deposit that you may have. It's 315,000 last year, it's 350,000 this year. And then your capital assets, which is you have non-depreciable, which would be land and items that we don't write down or over time, and that's at 7,245,000 this year versus 5.7 million last year. Depreciable assets of the city of New Iberia were 79.9 million book value last year, or estimated book value. This year they're at 76.1 million. The reason they go down, obviously you're writing them off over time. You're depreciating them. Total assets of the city were 107 million last year. They're 110,693,000 for the current year. You have these deferred outflows, which is stuff relating to the pension plan. This is what this is all about. Dan just alluded to it as far as the percentages. But these are like a prepaid pension, if you would, 9.8 million. These numbers are given to us by the state, by the individual pension plans, and they tell us how much is applicable to the city of New Iberia. It tells us how much your liability is, as well as some of these quote-unquote prepaid items. Let's look at liabilities, the debts of the city, and you can see there's various things there, accounts payable. The big items are, of course, the long-term liabilities, which is the debts, the bonded debt, which was 3,196,000 for the payable in 1 year, and also the payable after 1 year, another 26.3 million. Okay, so you got to right at $30 million in bonded debt. But look at these next two items in the middle of the page there. Other post-employment benefits. This is on the health insurance. You have to get a projection of what it's going to cost to fund people once they retire relative to group health insurance. It's pretty close both years. This is given to us by an actuary who takes your employees and so on. 7.3 million last year, 7,553,000 this year. This is an estimate, an actuarially computed number. Net pension liability, look at this number. 14.5 million is what's applicable to the city of New Iberia versus 22 million last year. And then you have this deferred outflow, which is like an additional liability. Now, again, these numbers are all provided to us and tell us this is the amount pertaining to this city, 1.6 million. I want to get to the bottom now net position. We take the assets minus the liabilities, we're left with a net position or net surplus, if you would, accumulated surplus. Last year was a net number of 55.5 million. This year we're at 56.4 million. Now, obviously we don't have that in cash because we've reinvested in capital of about $56 million. But you do have capital projects restrictions, and the big thing I want to look at is sales tax dedications. You've got various sales taxes here that are dedicated for specific purposes. But they're general, broad purposes that you need to operate the city. So just keep that number in mind, 8.1 million, and then last year was 6.1 million. So, taking a look now, I want to transition over to Exhibit 4, and I want to point something out. So we're showing 56 million, but what is our available surplus of that 56 million? Exhibit 4 is going to depict this. I'm going to start with the unrestricted net position, and it's a deficit. This net position is a deficit. As Dan pointed out, it's in brackets, 14 million. That's the same number that's on page 64. To that number, though, I'm going to add back the state pension plans, the net pension liability, and that nets out with these prepaids and these additional liabilities of about 14,949,000. I'm going to add back the OPEB liability, which is the other post-employment benefits, mainly your health plan, 7.5 million. Sales tax dedications, I want to add that back. That's another 8 million. We just looked at that. So it gives me my available net position for the city at 16.3 million. Everybody sees that number, okay? Look at last year. We're at 13.1 million. Remember our surplus for the year, 3.6? That's where I'm going with it. It shows it's all there. And is it available in cash? Well, you have $22 million. It's in various accounts, but you had $22 million of cash. So yes, it is available. And so from that, I'm going to look at number 2 now in that caption on Exhibit 4. Annual expenditures of the city is a total of 33 million this year, minus the capital outlay. So what's my operating expenditures without capital? That's what it takes to operate the city, $32 million. Very close to where it was last year. Average daily expenditures, you're spending $88,000 a day in this city. Your amount recommended, you should have at least 60 days of surplus. That's 5 million too. You've got 16 million. I just pointed that out. So we're at $11 million more than what the benchmark of 60 days. Now remember, that's the bare minimum I think you should have. You're at 186 days. So you're at 6 months. As opposed to 2 months required, you're at 6. And I know, Dan, you can remember in the previous administrations, you were down very low.
We had 6 days.
I don't think you did. You're absolutely correct. I know some of the first years that we were doing your work, I remember meeting with the mayor and pointing some of these things out. It was bad. But it's steadily going up, and you can see 17, we were at 136 days. In 18, we went to 145 days. This year, with this great surplus that you involved with, you up to 186 days. So that's great, guys. We've got some cities that are higher than this. We've got some clients that are way below this. So this is good. I like the trend. I like everything that I see here. So keep up the good work. Any questions on what we just went over?
Questions, comments?
Hearing none, I'm just going to make a few comments. Let's flip to exhibit number 5. And we kind of point these things out to you. This is a comparison of ad valorem taxes and sales taxes with some of our other clients. All of these are clients of ours, and again, it's public record anyway. You can see the populations of the relative cities that we do: City of New Iberia, City of Carencro, City of Leesville. Lafayette's 126,000 citizens there, and then Youngsville's at 14,000, Broussard's at 12,000. The sales tax rates are all as indicated. Okay, you can see that Carencro's are now at 4%, Youngsville's at 3.5%, Broussard's at 3.5%. Their annual revenues are all indicated, as well as yours. The revenue per person is what I wanted to show. An average person here in the city of New Iberia is going to be paying about $587 in sales tax. In Carencro, it's $1,095. Leesville, $760. Lafayette, $659. Youngsville, $721. Broussard's, $1,170. So what's the lowest on the page, guys? Right over here, $586. So, and then the ad valorem millage. Let's compare that. You're at 22.5 million, and you can see all the others that are here. Broussard has no ad valorem tax. I'm sure you might be aware of that. But it shows you the annual revenues. And then what is a person paying who owns property, who lives in the city of New Iberia, paying $157 in property tax. Carencro's really low at 34, Leesville 132, Lafayette's 213, and Youngsville's at 123. Then I look at, well, what is an average citizen paying in sales tax and property tax if they own property? Here in New Iberia, $744. You're the lowest on the page if you look at it. Carencro's at 1,130, Leesville's at 892, Lafayette's at 872, Youngsville's at 845, and Broussard is at $1,170. But it's all sales tax in that city. But again, that's a good barometer here, okay? So when you're trying to sell things, and I know you're always trying to do it, you're always trying to sell the city, Mayor. This is another selling point, in my opinion. You know. All right, and exhibit number 6 is another analogy that we've done, and we had done this a number of years ago. And how much were we spending based on the population for police services? And let's look at the bottom line. All the populations are all indicated, the same cities that are here, that were on this previous page, except I think we added maybe the city of Scott, and we added the town of Orneville, very small. But you can see average expenditures that you're spending here in the city of New Iberia is $216 per citizen, 29,000 being the population here. Carencro spends $265. Leesville's at $477. Lafayette's at $261, Broussard $228, Scott's at $311, Youngsville's at $168, and Orneville's at $406. So again, take off Orneville, you know, you're one of the lowest here as far as the expenditures that you're able to spend on police protection. So anyway, just some additional food for thought. Any questions on a lot of this? We've gone through a lot of numbers, a lot of analogies, both Brad and I, and just to sum it up, is good report, guys. Let's keep up what we're doing, and Freddie, let's keep getting the grants. It's working, man. And this TIP district now that's been turned on, I think that's, again, Dan, another positive thing that I see here. So let's just keep it up. It's going to be a tough one to beat this year over last year, especially with the COVID
But
stuff.
thank God we got the surplus,
You
because
got it.
we
That's
are,
a good
I
thing,
can
man.
tell already that,
Absolutely.
we're holding our own, but it feels good to have it in this kind of scary time,
And Freddie, it's sales tax, and maybe Kevin, but how are we standing this year so far with this current fiscal year versus last year?
Kevin, how's our sales tax?
Year to date, we're up 0.24% year to date. We just did the last report, which would have been for the May sales. We were actually up 0.03% for the same month last year.
So it's holding.
It's holding. And it's those new stores. It's
Which is great, guys, because most of our clients are down, you know.
Thank God to our citizens for shopping local, and thank God to this council for helping get some new businesses here that they have something to shop.
Yep, no question. Again, we want to thank you all and thank the mayor, the administration, and this council for allowing us to work with you again this year. It's always a pleasure, and as usual, Mayor, if y'all have any questions, we certainly want to try and assist.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for all y'all do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, now we'll move on. Madam Clerk, item 5A.
Resolution approving change order number 3 dated June 15th, 2020 in favor of Southern Constructors LLC for the Jefferson Terrace Drainage Improvements Project for an increase in the project cost of $8,857.80.
Do I have a motion? Councilwoman Ledbetter, do I have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Guidry, is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please vote your machines. Thank you all very much. Item 5B.
Resolution approving certificate of substantial completion in favor of BR Construction Company Incorporated for renovations at City Park Pool House.
Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Have two of them. Councilman Swear and Councilman Broussard. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing and seeing none, vote your machines. Thank y'all. And we'll have a little more work on this pool house. We took the roof off. We got rid of the asbestos. Remember, we agreed that we'd make it an open-air pool house and kind of nurse the pool on for another year till we find some other options. There are a few more things to do in that building. I'll be bringing some contractors through and coming back to y'all. There's a little bit of electrical and just a few things that you can't take a roof off a building and expect, to be finished, so there are gonna be a few little things, but I'll get back with y'all on that. Madam Clerk, 5C.
Resolution approving certificate of substantial completion in favor of Power by Bauer LLC for the installation of Volt Load Center for 6 air conditioner units at the Sear Gate City Park Recreation Center.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilman Swear, do I have a second?
Second.
Dan Dahl, Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote your machines. Thank y'all very much. Madam Clerk?
Dustin?
Oh. Thank y'all very much. She was clearing it. It was probably right at the same time. We'll go to 5D. Madam Clerk?
Resolution approving certificate of substantial completion in favor of Southern Gulf Heating and Cooling LLC for the labor and equipment to install wall mount air conditioning units at Sear Gate City Park Recreation Center.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Councilman Swear and Councilwoman Guidry. Any discussion? No?
I have a-
Yes, sir.
comment. I want to thank the entire council for working together to make things like this happen. These are in my district, and like I said, once again, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, once again, I thank Dan because he helped re-engineer the whole thing, and we saved some money and got it done. So
Thank you, Dan.
it went well. Anything further? Please vote your machines. Thank you. I'm gonna slow down for a second.
You see your kids?
All right. Item 5E.
Resolution accepting bid and awarding contract to Reliant Industrial Solutions for Hurricane Barry FEMA Project Number 1, fence contractors, in the amount of $42,000, and awarding them and authorizing the mayor to execute any and all contract documents in connection therewith for FEMA Project Number 357659, FEMA Project Number 357666, FEMA Project Number 357667, FEMA Project Number 357669.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilwoman Ledbetter, and a second by Councilman Broussard. Any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
did we have an engineer put the specs out for this, or because it's just amazing that we only had 2 bids, and one bid was less than half the other bid.
Right, right. We, Maxine did a great job working on all of this. We had a scope of work. We put it all together, and then we lumped it together in like categories. Now, we put all the fencing together. We put all the electrical together. We
Right.
put the GC items together, and then we just put it out for bid. So
It was just a big difference.
it was, and one was local companies and one wasn't. And
Yeah.
there are people that follow FEMA around and just throw bids out on everything that FEMA puts out, and those were one set of bids, and the other set of bids were local people.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, sure. Any further discussion? Please vote your machines. Thank y'all. Five F.
Resolution accepting bid and awarding contract to Preferred Electric for Hurricane Barry FEMA Project Number 2 electrical in the amount of $7,270, and authorizing the mayor to execute any and all contract documents in connection therewith for FEMA Project Number 357659, FEMA Project Number 357666.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilwoman Guidry, and a second by Councilwoman Ledbetter. Is there any discussion on this one? Please vote your machines. Thank y'all. Five G.
Resolution accepting bid and awarding contract to Frisco for Hurricane Barry FEMA Project Number 3 contractors in the amount of $32,850, and authorizing the mayor to execute any and all contract documents in connection therewith for FEMA Project Number 357659, FEMA Project Number 357666, FEMA Project Number 357669, FEMA project number 357670, FEMA project number 357673.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilwoman Guidry, do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Broussard, any questions on this one? Seeing none, please vote your machines. Thank y'all. Five H.
Resolution rejecting the bid by Frisco Industrial for Hurricane Barry FEMA project number 4, signed company, in the amount of $5,500 for FEMA project number 357674. This bid is in excess of the FEMA obligated sum of $1,605.72.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilman Swear and Councilman Broussard?
Lewis.
Oh, Councilman Lewis, I'm sorry. Any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
can you explain,
Yeah,
why we
their bid
rejecting
was
this bid?
much higher than the money we had allotted, so we're gonna reboot.
Okay. So we're actually gonna start all over again with
On
the
that item,
actual-
yes, we'll
okay.
look at it again.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Anybody else?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
all these FEMA projects, all these dollars are coming from the federal government, not from our local?
Correct. All of this is coming back and reimbursing us for FEMA from Hurricane Barry.
Oh, so it's reimbursing or it's new money? We spent
No,
this money already?
some of it we spent, and some, what's that, Max?
75% reimbursement.
Right, 75% is reimbursed.
Cool, thank you.
Anybody else? Then I'll ask you to vote your machines. Thank y'all. Madam Clerk, item 6A.
Introduction of ordinance creating the class of Chief of Administration of the Fire Department as a competitive class in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute 332481-6 and Louisiana Revised Statute 332541.2, and to set the adoption of ordinance for public hearing on July 21st, 2020.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Councilman Lewis and Councilwoman Ledbetter. Is there any discussion on this item? It's introduction. We vote on an introduction? Yeah. Pretty sure. Vote your machines. I thought so. Thank you very much. Gordon? All good. Item 6B. I was expecting some talk.
Introduction of budget amendment ordinance number 2019-2020-12, amending the ordinance levying certain taxes, appropriating the funds necessary to defray the expenses and liabilities of the city of New Iberia for the year 2019-2020, to amend the budget to reflect year-to-date activity, and to set the adoption of ordinance for public hearing on July 21st, 2020.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilman Swear, do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Broussard, I think you got this one. Any discussion? None? Please vote your machines. Thank you. Item 7.
Budget to actual analysis for November 1st, 2019 through April 30th, 2020, presented by Kevin Zarang.
Thank you. You get a break. That's a lot.
Good evening, everyone. I know this is part of the meeting y'all all been looking forward to, so
That's it, Kevin.
enjoy it. So, make a suggestion, rather than going through all the numbers, are y'all okay if we just say percentage where we are? And if y'all have any questions, because I'm sure y'all all want to go home.
Sure. That's good.
Okay. So after 6 months, this was a budget report through April, the end of April, which is 6 months into the fiscal year, so we should be at 50% of budget. On the general fund, we are at 53.62% of budget on revenue, and on expenses, we're at 47.8% of expenses. Parks and Recreation, we're at 63.45% of the revenue. That is because of the way we recognize ad valorem tax. And we are at 41.2% of the expenses. Public Works, 64.12% of budgeted revenue and 40.9% of budgeted expenses. Public Safety Fund, Sales Tax Fund, we're at 49.5% of the revenue budgeted, and we are at 49.79% of the expenses year to date. Public Safety, we're at 49.84% of budgeted revenue, and we're at 40.94% of budgeted expenses. Garbage Fund, we're at 47.8% of budgeted revenue, and we're at 49.96% of budgeted expenses. Section 8 vouchers, we are at 51.25% of budget revenue, and we are at 49.92% of budget expenses. Wastewater, we're at 65.39% of budget revenue, and we are at 49.8% of budget expenses. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? None?
Thank you, Mr. Duran. Thank you for all our keeping us in order, keeping the money up. Thank you.
We have no discussion items tonight, so I'm going to move on to Councilman's remarks, and I'm going to start with Dustin.
Sweet. After hearing tonight's meeting with the audit report, that's a plus. And after hearing and seeing everything that's going on, so basically we are promoting, but pretty much telling people, look, New Iberia is open. Quit moving to Broussard, quit moving to Youngsville, quit moving to Lafayette. We have it right here. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Guidry.
I agree with Councilman Sweer, and also to Mayor, I wanted to find out, do we get a grade letter for our actual audit for this year? For this particular audit, or we don't get a grade letter for this audit?
No.
Okay, not a grade letter.
No.
Okay. An A. Okay.
Yeah, basically it's yeah.
I was gonna say an A. Okay, and Mayor, I put together a video and I wanted to share with the council on tonight. I think Ms. Erin was so kind enough to be patient with me as I sent it to her, and I wanted to unite the citizens of New Iberia to bring unity to the city, being that we come out of COVID-19, civil unrest. We're in the issue of Black Lives Matter. They do matter. All lives matter. We have a lot of people that have a lot of things to voice, and all of it is important. And I just wanted to just share some unity and spread a little bit of love. Maybe touch a few hearts and put some smiles on the face of the citizens of New Iberia. Miss Heather, can we hit the lights maybe a little bit? You might probably can see it a little bit. Thank you, Miss Heather.
The left hand.
Hi, I'm Councilwoman Sherry Guidry. Like many of you, I'm a wife, a mother, and a grandmother, and I've raised my family here. We may be going through some difficult times now all over this nation, but our community is strong. Right here at home, we must pull together and continue to build from those relationships in which we hold dearest to our hearts. Let's take time and listen to one another. Remember, nothing moves and nothing starts or even change without first a prayer and then a conversation. Let's continue to encourage one another, pray for one another, stand up for one another. We all need one another. from our spiritual leaders to the elderly with great wisdom in our communities, to our historical landmarks, our churches, our local small businesses, our Sunday eateries, our go-to soul food businesses, to our unique cultural festivals, our native authors, music and arts, and yes, all our great neighbors and neighborhoods. Let's continue to stir up a unique pot of gumbo. I know it's tough right now, and I understand, but we must continue to encourage one another and pray for justice and peace and reconciliation for this nation and right here at home. Let's take a faith step in a positive direction together in New Iberia, Louisiana. Kindness and politeness is the color of humanity. Yes, we've been through a lot of things. We've been turned upside down and right side up. And the sufferings of this modern world are still being confronted with all open wounds of humanity. And yet, as New Iberians, we still rise. We are a family, beautifully and wonderfully made. Together, we possess the greatest treasure out of all of Acadiana. And these treasures are charity, hope, and love. And the greatest of these in New Iberia is love. We are one mind, one soul, one spirit here in New Iberia. And I just stopped by to encourage you, my friends. Prayer provokes a strong change, and we are all on one accord. In New Iberia, Louisiana, we love all our families, and we love our children too. I'm no expert on these matters we've been through, but I just stopped by to tell you, we will get through this together. I love you. Remember, let's give God the praise. We got this, New Iberia. Thank you, Miss Ari. Thank you, Mayor.
Nice move.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just encourage everybody.
That's good.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, dude. Follow that, dude.
Oh, yes, I am.
I know you.
It just won't be as nice, put it that way.
Uh-oh.
We did have a good audit. Even though we've been through this pandemic and we're still going through it, things are going well for us. It's not over. We don't want to go back to where we were in March and April. We have an uptick in COVID-19 going on right here in New Iberia, in Acadiana, in the state of Louisiana, and neighboring states also. They ask you, our parish president asked everybody to wear face covering in public, social distance, and also wash your hands, use hand sanitizer. I went to Lafayette, went to Sam's. About 90% of the people in Sam's had a face covering on. Here in New Iberia, maybe 50% of the people in a store will have the face covering on. We're not taking it serious here. It seems like, and it starts up here too, because we're not taking it serious up here either. Yes, it is your right not to wear a mask, but is it your right to possibly give me a disease that you don't know you have? So we need to all protect each other. The face covering protects each other. I'm protecting you, you should be protecting me. Some people say they can't breathe through it. Well, think about George Floyd with somebody's knee on his neck for almost 9 minutes. That's what you call can't breathe. A little face covering right here, that's nothing compared to what he went through. So I think we can all suffer a little bit to get to the other side of what we're going through. If we don't do it now, because we can, it's our choice, it can be mandatory. We don't want to have to go through that again. So please, everybody, wear your face coverings, especially when you're not social distancing like we are here. Inside the building, where the air is just circulating in here. Please be cognizant of other people. Don't just think about yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, that was a great report. And this is big. This is like you graduating from high school with your report and if you pass or not. And I want to let you know, this council's been passing for the last 3 years with the mayor, taking the leadership and giving up some of his personal time to continue to work in this office. I've been here quite a few years and I've seen mayors that gave the time and gave the effort. And this mayor gives it. I want to say that. And I want to thank Kevin. We laugh about Kevin when he comes up here. We don't want to hear this stuff because it's all good. But you know, it's the work that Kevin does in that back little office over there that makes these reports come out right. Because findings, I mean, we have findings all the time. And to have new findings is big. We take it for the hours that he puts in. And look, me and Kevin, I'll give him a rough time sometimes. But thank you for all what you do, because it's somehow like that, it makes us look good, even though we got a good mayor that we follow. But that's big. I mean, it's big. People don't understand how big it is. I know, because I've been through the times when it was not so big. And you know, it's like everything's being easier. Everything we're doing is becoming more natural to everybody. And I want to thank the new clerk. She's making us some new little blue things to make it more easy for us to keep on track with the agenda.
Yes.
So, you know,
It was nice.
change is sometimes we like, what's going to happen? How's it going to be? And sometimes change is good, sometimes bad. And I think it's all good. I want to thank you for the effort you did to make it easier for us to get up here and continue on this agenda. And because it makes it easier for everybody to have a nice agenda. And thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Broussard?
A lot of this surrounds the word update. Kevin, your update you give us, you up here, we appreciate that. We're keeping track of it month to month, you know, as we go. We've been where we had councils before. We didn't get a report from every 6 months or a year. That's a long time to catch up. So we thank you, Kevin, for giving us reports. Mr. Mayor, I think we're losing our buddy, Mr. Leroy Landry, the 11th.
His last day's
He
a 10th.
helped the city a lot.
That he did.
And the parish, 52 years service. He really, every day, I think he put his foot forward. We're gonna dearly miss him. I hope you have a good fellow to replace him. But personally, he's helped my district a lot. I'm sure he's helped a bunch of others too. When he does something, he does it on a large scale, but it ends up being right for that street or whatever. The budget was very nice. We got 186 days ahead. And we were sitting here, you know. I watched y'all while I was out. It was hard. 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20. That's not a lot of days. 186 days, that's good. Mr. Mayor, don't forget about the tip tax. Safety. Let's work with the state. Get us some sidewalks in front of, I see them walking every day up and down 14. So at least we can come so far down with that tip tax and use some of that first for the safety of the people to get to work and back from Lowe's and all that. That's a dangerous road. They've had killings already. Deaths, 6 I know, across from the old Best Western. They had some crossing the road in different times. We've had a few deaths. So keep that in mind with the tip money, please.
Yes, sir.
And that's all I have.
All right. Marlo?
Mayor, after listening, Mayor, Council, constituents, after listening to that budget, it made me say I'm proud to be a New Iberian. I'm proud to live in New Iberia, and I'm proud to be a part of this council that made this happen. You know, when I was looking at the excess of money we saved, that was awesome. Being a part of that is awesome. You know, people ask me all the time. They say, "What is it like being a councilman?" And I tell them it's fun. A wise man told me years ago. He said, "Find something you love to do, and you'll never work a day in your life." Now, I'll say I don't always love some of the stress that comes with it when you can't get something done for somebody. That's the stress I can't. You want to get something done for everybody. You want to get things fixed for everybody. But government teaches you that not everything can be fixed by government. Some things people have to take ownership of. But man, I'm proud to be a New Iberian. I know another thing I noticed is cheaper to live in New Iberia than a lot of those places.
It is.
A lot of those places that people are running to, you know, and we wish they'll run back. You know, New Iberia got its problems, but I promise you, I wouldn't trade it in for the world. I'm going to say this, man, I'm going to shut up. I argue. I own a barber shop, and I haven't been able to argue much because we haven't been able to work much because of this COVID-19. But we argue about New Iberia compared to Lafayette and Youngsville and Broussard. And I brag on New Iberia all the time. And I tell them all the time, I say the major TV stations are in Lafayette. And it's easier for them to point the finger at New Iberia. It's easy to point the finger at Opelousas. It's easy to point the finger at Ville Platte. I say, man, but they're not going to make me believe that they got more that we got more crime than Lafayette. They're not going to make me believe we got more cases of COVID-19 than Lafayette. They got 100,000 more people than us. They're not going to make me believe that. So not only is this a great place to live, but we're honest. We tell the truth. Yeah, we got 46 cases of COVID-19. Yeah, we got, I think, 2 or 3 unsolved murders, which is unfortunate. But we have a great police department, and we believe that they're going to get those murders solved with community buy-in. But let me tell you something. I hang my hat on and saying I'm from New Iberia. I'm proud to be a New Iberia. Sherry, that was an awesome presentation. Ms. Deidre Ledbetter, I ditto your comments about the mask. I thank my friend Harry Daniels and Chris Washington law firm for making a mask for me to wear. And I'm aware. You know, I support those efforts. It's very opinionated, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. I don't have a lot of remarks, you know. Maxine came tonight. It was her last meeting, Erin's first meeting. I think she did a great job. Leroy, it is Leroy's last week. Leroy retires on the 10th. Leroy's put 10 years in with this city. I thank him for every day. Before that, he did a lot with the parish and soil and water. Leroy's worked, 50-something years. He'll be missed. I want to tell you that Joe Livingston, who's a longtime employee of Public Works, doesn't want the job full-time, but he is stepping up and he is helping. I'm in a weird position that he's the highest level you can be in civil service. His job description at the highest level in Public Works is everything. I can't elevate him because then he would be out of civil service. Part of why Joe wants to not take the position is that he can stay in civil service. So as the second, it all falls on Joe. Joe is willing to do it. We're starting to communicate more and more and kind of getting a good little rapport of how we will do this when we all miss Leroy. But I want to commend Joe for stepping up, and I am beginning to search for someone. I can tell you that Joe will be involved in that. As the second, Joe knows has a whole lot of institutional knowledge about Public Works, so he's valuable, to help me with that search. But the search is beginning. It's not immediate to grab somebody. When you look at the skill set of Public Works, it's a unique position. You would want someone who understands equipment, who understands mechanic work. You would want someone who can negotiate to buy equipment, to make repairs. You need someone who understands the financial side, and then you need somebody with a background in construction. So it's multifaceted. And Public Works is the one department that really makes us look good or doesn't make us look good. I mean, if you think about it, the majority of your problems of the day-to-day, sidewalk calls, street repair calls, drainage calls, all those things all play into, even with compliance, because who goes clean it up but Public Works. Yeah. So there's not an issue that they don't touch. So, I want to really make sure that we get the right person. to keep us moving in the right direction. But anyway, I wanted to just thank Joe for stepping up. Of course, thank Leroy, thank Maxine. You know, you're only as good as your people, and I realize people come and go. And I'm in a position when I look at I have some great department heads, but I have many of them that have been here 35, 40 years. You know, I have to anticipate that along the way there might be some changes. With those people go a whole lot of knowledge, but you know, you change and you keep adapting and move on. As far as for our audit, couldn't do any of the audit, any of the businesses we've attracted, any of the good things that we've done without every one of y'all. You know, we are a team. We do well together. We don't always agree, and that's what makes it even better because, you know, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing, you know, at least everybody's thinking. We can't thank y'all enough. We would not be in the position we're in if it was not for every one of you. The new businesses, you know, thank God for them. Like I said, it's 250 new jobs. That's just in the 4 bigger businesses. You know, we've gotten 65 new businesses over the last couple of years. The COVID has slowed us down, I admit it. Met with called a developer today, trying to kind of coordinate with him to come, talk to an out-of-state company about locating here, and have showed him some property today. Sent some pictures back and forth. That's a possibility. Looks like we have a little retail shop from Lafayette that's going to locate here. So, you know, things are still happening. We're still selling this place, and couldn't do it without y'all. So I thank y'all for that. And other than that, our next meeting is July 21st, and I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
There you go.